Imagine waking up to a planet where the entire human population has vanished. No warning, no explanation, just gone. Every house, every city, every vehicle, every satellite orbiting Earth still there, but the people? Not a single one left. What happens next might surprise you. In the first few hours, the planet would be eerily silent. No car horns, no chatter, no airplanes streaking across the sky. The lights would still be on, at least temporarily. Power stations would continue running automatically, controlled by systems designed to keep things stable. But without human supervision, it's only a matter of time before problems start to surface. Within a few hours, power grids would begin to fail. Some areas might hold out for days, others only minutes. Nuclear plants would activate emergency shutdowns, and wind turbines and solar panels would operate for a while, but even they would begin to degrade without maintenance. Darkness would slowly creep across cities as the lights flicker out. Animals would sense the change almost immediately. Pets locked indoors would be the first to suffer, with no one to feed them or let them out. Zoo animals would eventually break free, either through starvation-induced chaos or as enclosures rust and weaken. Domesticated pets that managed to escape would revert to their wild instincts, cats turning feral, dogs forming packs. In the countryside, livestock would wander aimlessly, many falling prey to predators or struggling to survive without human care. Nature would start reclaiming its space. Within a week, the skies would look clearer. Without constant emissions from vehicles, factories, and planes, pollution levels would plummet. The smell of exhaust fumes would vanish, replaced by the scent of plants beginning to thrive without interference. Urban areas would become eerily beautiful, silent cities overtaken by greenery. Wildlife would begin venturing into places they once avoided, wandering through streets and buildings without fear. 1 month in, the effects would become even more dramatic. Water treatment plants would shut down completely, leaving faucets dry. Underground sewage systems would clog and overflow. Without maintenance, subway systems would flood and tunnels would collapse. Roads would begin to crack from growing roots and weeds. Windows would shatter from storms. Roofs would begin to cave in. Skyscrapers, once proud symbols of human achievement, would start to crumble from the top down. With no HVAC systems running, mold would flourish in damp environments. Buildings made from metal would begin to rust. Glass would fracture, and wooden structures would rot away. After 1 year, the planet would be well into its transformation. Plant life would dominate cities. Vines would crawl up buildings. Trees would burst through sidewalks. Concrete would decay. Forests would expand into suburbs. Fields once plowed and harvested would turn wild. Crops would grow unchecked until pests or weeds choked them out. Bees, butterflies, and other pollinators would repopulate areas they'd abandoned due to pesticides. Birds would fill the air with song, no longer competing with the constant roar of traffic. Without airplanes and satellites being maintained, the skies above would also shift. Satellites would eventually fall from orbit and burn up in the atmosphere. Without rocket launches or maintenance, space debris would accumulate, potentially turning low Earth orbit into a hazardous zone of uncontrollable junk. After a decade, iconic monuments would be almost unrecognizable. The Eiffel Tower would begin to rust and weaken. The Statue of Liberty, exposed to ocean winds and salt, would start to crumble. The Great Wall of China would be overtaken by vegetation. Mount Rushmore would still be mostly intact, but cracks and erosion would grow deeper with time. Even the pyramids, built to last millennia, would eventually succumb to sand and weather. Lakes, rivers, and oceans would thrive. Fish populations would boom without fishing. Coral reefs, once dying from pollution and acidification, would begin to recover. Whales and dolphins would flourish in quieter seas. Turtles would nest in droves on beaches no longer crowded with tourists. Natural ecosystems would flourish in the absence of human interference. 50 years after the disappearance of humans, almost all traces of our modern civilization would be buried under soil, vegetation, or ruins. The world would become a wild, chaotic garden, lush and free. Species that had been endangered would rebound. Wolves would rule forests again. Elephants might repopulate regions from which they'd been driven. Without human conflict, environmental destruction, or urban sprawl, biodiversity would bounce back in dramatic fashion. Some signs of human existence would persist. Plastics would remain scattered across the world, on beaches, buried underground, even floating in oceans. While nature would cover many of them, complete degradation would take centuries. Nuclear waste and abandoned reactors would pose risks for thousands of years. Concrete bunkers and underground shelters would remain intact the longest, buried like time capsules of a lost civilization. 100 years after humanity's disappearance, the Earth would look more like it did before civilization began. Most cities would be unrecognizable ruins overrun by forests and animals. Only the strongest structures, bridges, dams, some monuments might remain in decaying form. Insects, birds, and mammals would continue their cycles of birth, survival, and adaptation. Volcanoes would erupt, rivers would flood, and storms would reshape coastlines, all without human witnesses. Over the next 1,000 years, even those last relics would erode. The materials we built from, glass, steel, concrete, would crumble into dust. Skyscrapers would be nothing more than collapsed skeletons buried under vines and earth. Books, hard drives, and digital archives would disintegrate. Language, art, and knowledge would be lost. Nature would dominate every continent, from the poles to the equator. The planet would continue its orbit around the sun, rotating, tilting, shifting, just as it always had. It might take millions of years, but eventually, even plastic would break down. Nuclear waste would decay. Fossil fuels we once extracted and burned would remain trapped underground. All that might remain of us would be a layer in the geological record, a strange, thin line of plastics, metals, and radiation that scientists from a distant civilization might one day discover and wonder about. Could intelligent life ever rise again? It's possible. Evolution doesn't stop. Over millions of years, species could evolve to fill the gaps humans left behind. Apes, dolphins, or even octopuses might develop greater intelligence. One day, a new form of civilization could rise with its own tools, language, and technology. They might find the ruins we left behind and try to piece together our story. They might wonder why we disappeared, or maybe they'd never know we existed at all. In the end, Earth would survive and adapt. It always has. From mass extinctions to ice ages to asteroid impacts, our planet is resilient. While we often think we're at the center of everything, the reality is, life will go on without us. It will grow, change, and evolve, with or without human beings. So maybe the better question isn't what happens if we disappear, but what we choose to do while we're still here. Will we protect the planet or exploit it? Will we build a future or consume it? Because while Earth can recover from our absence, it would be far more meaningful if we stayed, responsibly, thoughtfully, and with respect for the world around us. But if we vanish, Earth will endure, the forests will return, the oceans will heal, and the skies, once clouded by smoke and light, will turn clear and dark again, lit only by... But if we vanish, Earth will endure, the forests will return, the oceans will heal, and the skies, once clouded by smoke and light, will turn clear and dark again, lit only by stars, and perhaps one distant signal still traveling outward, whispering across the cosmos, "Humans were here." If this made you wonder what other secrets the universe holds, subscribe to our channel Infinite If for more mind-bending explorations. And if you want to see how different events could change the course of reality, we've got plenty more waiting. Hit that subscribe button and step into the unknown with us.